Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm back from a long hiatus. It is Hector, aka DEFCON TCG. I'm here joined today with my favorite European player, Christian Fauna, aka Six PCG. Say what's up to the people.
What's up? I'm Christian. I play Pokemon and I stream and I coach and that's what I do.
I
Yeah.
will put all of the juicy links down in the description down below. Christian has been a Bolt believer for the last couple of months, I would say. If you go on his Twitter, more than likely he's either talking about it or talking to someone else about it. So, we're going to be playing something Bolt inspired by pretty much this list that All Out Blitzel posted. I know he's kind of like your Bolt partner in crime here. So, I
Yeah.
made a couple of changes to the list, and we're going to see if you hate them or not.
Sure.
So,
I'm going into this blind, so this is
it
gonna
is
be fun.
completely blind. So this is the 16 that I
Yep.
cooked up, right?
Okay.
So there's a Cyrano,
Yeah.
which if I have to Ultra Ball for Pidgeot
Hmm.
every game, I'm gonna cry. So I just threw it
That
in
seems
there.
valid.
I
Yeah, okay.
figure if we get use out of it, we'll figure it out. I played literally a game with this deck, so we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just gonna hop into it, and we're gonna see how the Bolt gaming goes. Christian also has a Raging Bolt guide on his Metafy, so if it's
True.
something you're interested in looking into, I actually got it myself, and I was able to look it over, and I got top four at Elite Cup, with zero games played. Raging Bolt is a little bit more complicated than it was before. It's not just eat Elmer's glue and then hope you hit Sada.
Yeah, you can sometimes still win like that, but it's definitely not as often or as reliable. So we gotta use the good old noggin now to actually figure out a game plan. But this is gonna be interesting. I have exactly 0 games with the Pidgeot build that I know James kind of just built as a meme and then kind of made it work, right? So this is gonna be proved to be really interesting. I think the Pidgeot is an interesting inclusion in the deck. Um, as I mean, being able to just grab Sada or Boss or Prime or whatever you want is obviously very strong. So I think the idea of just chucking in a small thin Pidgeot package seems really strong. If we could just Noctowl for the candy and the Pidgeot, right? Just get it out there right away. So I'm pretty interested to see how this will play.
Especially because I feel like this hand's pretty good. If we can top
This
deck
is this is
a
this is just a Trapagos hand.
if we can top deck any Terra Pokemon next turn, we're in there. Okay,
Hmm.
we're getting a mulligan. We're getting two mulligans. Oh, if we don't draw Terra Pokemon, we're
We
cooked.
we might need to bench the second fan rotom and try to dodge the donk. Oh wait, are we going first?
We're going first, yeah.
Okay, cool.
We don't lose die rolls over here, man. Come on. Only at
My
regionals I do
bad.
that. Oh no.
My bad. I
All right,
thought I
come
thought
on.
that's what
We're
we were playing right now.
top decking it right here. Come on, let me get that
Yeah,
Teal Mask Ogerpon. All right, no
not
Ogerpon
quite.
yet, but we need to thin our deck a bunch of cards here. And honestly, worst case scenario, we can go for the
Hmm.
Cyrano rare candy and the Pidgeot to grab it anyway. I don't. Did I bench this Fan Rotom?
You did just bench this fan on him, yeah.
Oh,
I was
well,
about to say,
you know what? It's fine. This active is gonna get
he's
knocked out anyway.
yeah.
So
Well, real quick here. So we have some interesting lines here because we can Ditto into our Terra Pokemon if we need to. We are just kind of risking that it gets turn one bonked by Roaring Miniac, so that is really hard for them to do. Alternatively, we can kind of like try to like um Cyano for our Terra Pokemon here, but then obviously wouldn't be able to Sada. Do we have a Pidgey deck?
we do have a Pidgeot in deck. Oh, we don't have Pidgey in deck.
We don't have Pidgey, so I think we have to grab this Ditto. Because then I definitely don't think we want to use Cyrano next turn. Well, my thought process anyway is that if we grabbed Pidgey here, we could actually just get the Pidgeot and the Ogerpon. And then yeah, we wouldn't be using Raging Bolt, but maybe it'd be okay, right? So
I think here, because we did end up prizing that Pidgey, it's probably fine to just get rid of the Cyrano. I don't know if we're going to be able to use it this game. Alternatively, you could also
no.
discard the fighting energy to have more Sada food for later.
Either works, but as we are going to be retreating this fan Rotom here, we're kind of getting our two energies right, which I think is going to be really good. We get
Yeah.
the Ogerpon from the Ditto, get the TL Dance down, just pass it from there. Hope we don't get bonked, and then with double Noctowl in hand, we're probably pretty likely to find the knockout on whatever two prize we want to kill.
And if your opponent has the knockout on your two prize or in the active, they're just better than you. So
True. Although I do feel like there's plenty of matchups where that is reasonable. This is not one of them. Don't expect my opponent to turn one knockout here. In fact, there's not a lot of turn one knockouts in this format. There's a lot of turn two knockouts though. A lot of Noctowl, Joltik.
And the nice thing
Regardless, I think
too,
this Ogerpon should be safe.
against the dark decks, is that since you have a grass type and Teal Mask Ogerpon, if you combine it with that turn one Teal Mask plus attach Teal Mask the next turn, if your opponent attaches an energy to their Roaring Moon, it just dies. So we're gonna
Yeah.
kind of see here if our opponent has the nuts. It's gonna take a lot of cards, even through a Squawk ability, to get that Sada, get that extra attachment. We see an Iono here, which is kind of
Mhm.
unfortunate because we're gonna lose our Noctowls here, but it means we're pretty much safe from this turn one donk, and it's
Mhm.
fine because we get the Noctowl off the top
We
anyway.
got the last Noctowl in our deck, notably. The two Ultra Balls are frankly just overkill at this point. Uh, Notably, though, since Dark Patch isn't in format, they actually need to energy switch to get a turn one Roaring Moon. So not only do they have to get the double attachment from the Sada, but they also have to energy switch the energy over. And again, while that is possible, especially with Squawk, the deck really isn't built to do it because they're kind of typically built to go Petulant on that turn one, maybe even using the Baby Raging Bolt into something. But otherwise, they kind of just want to go for a turn two Gouging Fire in most cases, right?
All right, let's do some math here, right? So that Roaring Moon over there has 290 health because of
Yep.
the Ancient Booster Capsule. So, because our opponent attached Dark Energy to that Roaring Moon, it is still in range of our Myriad Leaf Shower because of the weakness. So,
Yes.
shout out to our opponent for giving us knockout on their Roaring Moon this turn.
Mm-hmm. So notably, this means we can take two prize cards without committing our Prime Catcher. Something that is very important, as our opponent will likely try to shove a one prizer in our face again. The awkward part is that I don't think we'll be able to kind of cure the poison from this Ogerpon. We can put down a Stadium that will kind of diminish it just a little bit, but we might need to see
So, our other
some interesting
area
things here.
Area Zero is in the deck, so it might be fine to use this Area Zero in hand to bump
Yeah.
this Perilous Jungle, so we don't die to
Mhm.
the Petulant Poison across the next turn.
So we'd be taking 50, and then if they rebent or they use the stadium, get a new stadium, they'd then be doing 80, so that puts them at, I believe, 160 plus 50. That should actually be exactly enough, but that is only if they find the stadium. Otherwise, they will likely need to hit us with something like a Baby Roaring Moon, and that is a great way to kind of force the Sada. Regardless, this is good. We have the double Ultra Ball in our hand. This means we can get a Terra Pokemon and a Noctowl. We might just draw some of those cards
That
off
is
the
also
prize cards.
pretty
Who
good
knows?
draw there too. Yeah, we could just
Additionally, an idea could be to put down the Area Zero here, bench the Raging Bolt, and we could even Ultra Ball for probably another Ogerpon. This means that if they Stadium Bump, we can discard our Noctowl, meaning that is a search card from our Night Stretcher, which can kind of increase our consistency draw as well. Alternatively, we could remove a Fan Rotom this way. Either or, I think putting down two bench Pokemon here with the Area Zero seems really strong in my opinion, although it is a bit of a commitment as far as resources are concerned. So there's a bit of back and forth there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, do you want to use the Ultra Ball? 'Cause then you have to kind of get rid of the Ultra Ball and the Judge because you need to keep Raging Bolt and
Hmm.
Sada for the following turn. So
Absolutely.
I do agree about committing. Yeah, we have to definitely commit the Area Zero here and bench the Raging Bolt. I
Hmm.
believe that there's no Mew in this list because you have to cut a couple of cards
Oh,
for the Pidgeot
yeah.
package. So yeah, they end up
Yeah.
cutting one of the Mew. So it's one additional draw card that's gone. So I think if we're gonna use the Ultra Ball here, maybe we want to save it for Noctowl next turn because we are taking
Mm,
two prizes and drawing a card. So any of those cards
true.
can be a potential Ogerpon for next turn. So I
Yeah.
think I'm just gonna hold it for now. Who knows? The Judge might even be useful later if we can use it. Maybe
Very true.
draw into like a rescue stretcher in the late game to again take another knockout with the Teal Mask Ogerpon. We still have two more in the deck, so likeliness of us seeing one is pretty high. We've used no ball cards, so we can always top like a Nest Ball, the hard Teal Mask. We can even top like Cyrano, I guess.
Yeah, that is very true.
But
There's some pretty interesting outs here
pretty
for
unfortunate we
sure.
prized the Pidgey in game one of the Pidgeot Raging Bolt showcase, man.
Yeah. Although notably, this does kind of serve as a proof of concept that the deck can work when we are effectively playing anywhere between 3 and 4 dead cards in our deck. Um, with a thin line of Pidgeot. While the Pidgeot is, of course, good and it does serve a purpose, notably, it does kind of mean that we can't reliably expect to Pidgeot every single game. You just can't really do that with a 101 line of anything. Prize cards, being a big reason for that, of course, but there's many other factors that could contribute, right? So seeing that the deck does function and work as intended, even when we don't have the Pidgeot, is really, really important. I do think the late game will be the main test on that front, but in a matchup like this, we are likely able to just continuously stream attackers using our Noctowls, and we probably should be fine.
Yeah, thankfully, with a matchup like this, there isn't really a late game per se. It's kind of just bonking each other over the head with a two-prizer until one person whiffs. And definitely the Pidgeot's going to help a lot with that. So even if, let's say we did get the Pidgeot set up right and our opponent wanted to knock it out, the only way they could reliably do so is by using the Roaring Moon's attack to instantly knock it out. But then in return, they take 200 damage, so then we can retaliate with something like a Fan Rotom, because if they have a stadium in play or we have a stadium in play, which between the two decks there's probably anywhere from 7 to 8 stadiums, more than likely the Fan Rotom is going to be a lot online. So unfortunately our opponent does have the stadium bump with the Perilous Juggle, but they did have to commit their Ace Spec in Secret Box that allowed them to grab that Night Stretcher and the stadium. So unfortunately we're going to lose Teal Mask Ogerpon here, but like Christian was saying earlier, because we didn't have to commit our Prime Catcher, we can still take a 2-prize knockout here. So ideally, this Pheasantipede is going to die.
Yep, absolutely. That should just be our line here. Notably, they won't be able to take 2 prize cards with a 1 prizer again on this following turn. So we are largely okay on that front. If they do want to respond to our Raging Bolt, they will have to do so by using the Roaring Moon, right? Now, notably, please do not put this Noctowl into play. We do not have an Ogerpon. This is something we maybe could have talked over as far as a play is concerned, because I don't think the bench Raging Bolt and play Sada play is inherently that bad, although we do go very punished for it in this case. As we aren't really able to do a whole lot in this situation.
Well, so my thought was that our opponent has no 2-prizer down that can take a knockout of ours. So if they do use the Petron to knock out Fan Rotom, we also turn on Counter Catcher so that we can just counter catch the Pheasantipede next turn. So
very true.
That is, I don't know if he saw the Counter Catcher in the deck earlier when we were going over the list. It's not a card that's super common in Raging Bolt, but and then worst case scenario,
I'm a big Counter Catcher fan.
I'm a big fan of the Counter Catcher. I think that card was really good for me. So I think even if our opponent, is able to power up this Petra run and do 120 plus poison damage, it's not able to knock any 2-prizers on our board. And then on the following turn, we're basically saying, okay, you're gonna knock out our Fan Rotom, and if not, we have some play during our next turn, because they are gonna take 10 damage from poison, and then our Fan Rotom can just trade into Petra run, and then it's kind of the same thing. We're taking a prize card either way, but since our opponent doesn't have something like a Roaring Moon down, or I don't even know what else his deck plays. Maybe they play like an Ogie Dogie.
Probably not, but
probably not,
it's typically just the 2 Roaring Moons, right? Now, notably, while I do think that in hindsight, actually, but kind of like when you talk over this, I think this play probably was our correct line, as you kind of observed there. They don't really have a good attacker in play. One thing to note is that our alternative, regardless of if it was correct or not, would have been to Ultra Ball for the Ogerpon, and then likely proceed to either Ultra Ball again, or if we don't want to discard our entire hand, we do just play the Sada for 1. Then we Ultra Ball for the Noctowl and go from there. We probably would be able to find the 2-prizer, but in a situation like this, we actually don't need to find the 2-prizer to then take the kill, right? It is not entirely necessary, and, as you kind of say, we end up in a situation like this where now not only has our opponent activated Counter Catcher for us, but we now have that freed up bench space, and we can kind of just do whatever we want from here, right? Should be really easy to get the Ogerpon into play to activate our Noctowl so we can just go ham, right?
Yeah, so the nice part here is we get to play Minecraft creative mode now, because we have a Terra Pokemon and we have a Noctowl. So more likely here, we're probably going to grab that Area Zero Underdepths and that Counter Catcher. Because now, is one of our Hoothoots? We still have a Hoothoot in deck, so we can't actually just use the Judge this turn to kind of get rid of our opponent's giant hand as well.
Yep.
So we can attach this bad boy here and then go
Seems pretty
for
strong
the
to
knock
me.
towel into, like I said, the stadium plus the
Mm,
counter catcher. Boom,
yeah.
boom. I guess we really wanted to here too. We could also grab the jamming tower. It's not super strong against our opponent's deck, but I mean it is usable. Yeah, just grab this Pheasantipity right here. So we're gonna put our
Yep.
opponent down to 4 cards as well as ripping, their giant hand. I think there's also
Hmm.
an argument here maybe to Ultra Ball away this Baby Bolt because it's not gonna be very useful going forward. It's not gonna help us with taking a 2-prize knockout at any point in the game. I think this rare candy is pretty much dead. I think we're kind of accepting the
Yep.
fact that we're not going to be using Pidgeot this game, unfortunately. Something to note here
Yep.
too: our opponent did take a knockout through poison, so while normally getting Pheasantipity here would be correct, I'm going to grab Hoot Hoot, so that way we
Yep.
have another Noctowl for the following turn, because that's probably going to be how we're going to close out this game. And off of this Judge, I'm hoping to rip maybe a energy retrieval or a rescue stretcher just to be able to get some more energy in play. And I do get a Sada, a Slitherwing, and a Nest Ball. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this Nest Ball for next turn. If our opponent puts down a Roaring Moon and knocks out our Raging Bull, then we can use that to grab a Pheasantipity to kind of dig more cards into our deck.
Hmm.
And then, but I do think because we do have the open bench space, I want to bench the Slitherwing in case they do knock out our Raging Bolt. We'll have 2 targets for Sada. That way, if let's say our opponent bosses up this Ogerpon somehow and then knocks it out, gets rid of our stadium, then um,
Hmm.
we still have a couple more targets in play.
Yeah.
That way, and we can
Yep.
also get rid of more Noctowls that way as well. If our opponent doesn't want to get rid of our stadium.
Absolutely. Now, notably, I do think it is incredibly likely that our opponent will swing into us with this Petrant. It should be exactly within range now of one-shotting a Raging Bolt EX. This means that just a single copy of Dark Energy will be enough to take that knockout on our active. And now, notably, this Petrant EX is weak to fighting. So with the fighting in hand, and I believe is that a Sada in our hand, if I'm not mistaken, benching the Slitherwing does actually just give us game. Now, of course, it does with the Raging Bolt as well. By just having the Raging Bolt plus the energy does also get us there, as it is fighting weak, right? But also is just a very frail Pokemon. So we gotta have all our bases covered here, right? Regardless of what our opponent puts in the active, as long as it is a 2-prize Pokemon, we are going to be able to just win the game. Now, one of the scary things our opponent could do here would be to take a 1-prize knockout with a 1-prizer, say this Petrant, notably, as they would then go to 2 prize cards, as they have already knocked out a 1-prizer this game. Of course, they have already used the poison, so it's very unlikely that this will happen. Might even be a minor misplay on our opponent's end to use the poison before playing this Pokegear, right? But regardless of that fact, that would have been one of their more likely outs into the game. I think poisoning and knocking out the Hoot Hoot with a Peerless Jungle would have been really, really strong, as it would have also have denied the Pheasantipity while removing our Noctowl outs. Of course, with a hand that has double Sada energy, we are probably fine. We would need to find that Prime Catcher, which might be a little bit difficult, but we would have an out regardless. However, now that we played the Sada, they've used the poison. I highly doubt that this is going to happen, so we should just be fine in this situation.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough spot from our opponent because then if they attack with a 1-prizer, if it's not a 1-prizer knocking out our Hoot Hoot, then it leaves us with Sada to draw any out to Hoot Hoot or to Noctowl, an Ultra Ball or just a hard
Hmm.
Noctowl gets us that Prime Catcher for game that we still have not used yet, which is pretty
Yep.
crazy. Usually in these matches where it's the Slugfest decks, you're going to be able you usually see that card come out pretty early.
Yeah,
Let's
it's quite
see.
rare that we don't see Prime Catcher on turn
And
two
even
from
worst
either
case
side.
scenario, this is basically a free turn for us to just kind of set up a
Hmm.
big board because our opponent
Yep.
really didn't do anything last turn. This 60
Yep.
damage on this Raging Bolt is pretty useless.
Yeah. Notably, I think they theoretically could knock us out with like a Brute Bonnet, but that is very obviously a kind of a cope play. It is really just them trying to take a knockout with something here. But notably, I think that means we can actually do something funny here where we just knock out the Petrant. I was about to say we would knock it out with poison, but we do unfortunately already have a poison tick on the Petrant, so we can't knock it out with poison. But I think knocking out regardless is pretty strong because it means that we now no longer actually have to find a Prime Catcher. So if our opponent does hand disrupt us in any way, knocks out with a 1-prizer, try to be a little cheeky, we can kind of not really care anymore right now that we only have one prize card left. No reason to play defensively. We are ahead, and we should abuse that fact.
And unfortunately, we haven't seen a copy of Rescue Stretcher or Energy Retrieval this game. Would have been pretty nice just to kind of have the guaranteed game where we were able to attach an energy to Teal Mask Ogerpon, but unfortunately from our opponent, Petron only has 190 HP, so it is pretty weak. And I don't think our opponent is going to have a way to wall a Raging Bolt from just doing infinite damage next turn. And this
It
kind of the nice
seems.
part about this version is that it's not as reliant on ripping Sada because now you do have the extra copies of Crispin. So if early in the
Mhm.
game you're able to use those copies of Crispin, now later in the game you have so many extra copies of Sada that you can, get Ionoed into, right? You take your first knockout and you have 20 cards in deck and 3 of them are Sada or 4 of them are Sada. Chances of you ripping into one are pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely. Notably as well, modern Raging Bolt doesn't really have as much discard as Raging Bolt of the past. Trekking Shoes, Pokestop, Greninja, etc. They're all rotated, so using Sada early is actually pretty rare and frankly pretty difficult. So not only does the Crispin serve as a way to power up our Raging Bolt early, it also puts our energies in the discard pile after we attack with the Raging Bolt, and it preserves Sadas for the late game. So it's really a win-win all around to be playing this increased count of Crispin. I think the 2 count is a very, very good number for a deck like this, as we don't really need it beyond turn 1 to sometimes in the mid game it can be pretty nice, but we do definitely not want to see it prized at any point.
All right, and now we get to just kind of win with style points and see how many energy we can
Hmm.
get onto the board. Usually, your opponent kind of scoops when they see the Sada, just because we
That's
only
what I.
need 2 more energy to win. But we'll see. Our opponent is choosing their prize cards. They're like, "Oh, Raging Bolt's not worth 3 prizes. I don't win."
Yeah, no tag teams here, thankfully.
But notably, as a deck that I was not really a believer in before, I kind of went into this little side mission with Christian. I
Hmm.
definitely respect Bolt a lot more now that I've played games with it. The deck is definitely a lot better than I had originally given it credit for. And now that I've played in a best of one setting, I think this deck, like, arguably is the best of one deck.
That is very possible, especially with the inclusion of Judge. Judge is a card that, if you don't mind, I'd like to rant a little bit about because I think it's very powerful. But notably, it's a card that, despite being a hand disruption card, actually serves a distinctly different purpose in the deck as opposed to something like Iono. Know this, right? But Judge is notably really only powerful as a disruption card in the early game. We can't judge people late or in the mid game. Resetting our opponent's hand to 4 when they have Fez, Mew, Noctowl, whatever else, right? Dracloaks. It's just not the same, right? However, if we do judge them before they get all that set up, before they have a Dracloak, after they use Cleffa, whatever else, right? It does kind of give us an amount of, well, for lack of a better term, bullshit factor, right? Where we can kind of cheese our opponent out of the game in a sense. Notably very strong into Gardevoir, as well as Dragapult, kind of as a plan B to our baby Raging Bolt being able to spawn trap things, right? If we combine the 2 cards, obviously incredibly powerful, but that is a bit of an ask. So having kind of 2 different routes to cheese your opponent out of an early game does make you really, really strong into these evolving stage 2 decks. And of course, in the other Noctowl decks or the other aggressive decks, so to speak, Gholdengo, Joltik, etc., we can prize race very effectively by just playing Prime Catcher and having that unlimited damage cap. So the deck has a very balanced matchup spread and also a layer of nuance that old Raging Bolt really never had to it. So I was a Raging Bolt hater for a very long time, but
Yeah, I agree. I'm also a
honestly,
Raging Bolt hater.
yeah, but honestly, since rotation and since Noctowl in the deck, it's kind of forced the deck to change in what I consider to be for the better. I think the deck has just strictly become better both in the meta and also in terms of raw power, as kind of having some versatility and some depth actually means that your opponent can't just read you like a book every time you play the game, which is relatively important in my opinion. So big fan of Raging Ball right now. Should go
Also,
without saying.
in this format, Burst Roar
Mhm.
feels like a real attack.
It's a real attack. It's a very real attack because a lot of decks aren't threatening you on turn 1. Turn 2, absolutely, but on turn 1, Burst Roar, it's kind of fine. Especially because the Raging Ball kind of has a lot of
Alright,
HP, right?
so it looks
Um,
like here we probably hit pure Dragapult, and we're gonna be getting
mhm.
item lock next turn. So what my thought here is I'm just gonna Ultra Ball, Counter Catcher, Night Stretcher because they're pretty useless at this point in the game. Attach this and just go for
Mhm.
the Fan Rotom stuff. I
Yeah.
think more than likely we're gonna be having to go for a Burst Roar next turn unless we top deck that
Well,
out to the Ogerpon.
notably, I think something we could have done is we could have Ultra Ball our Lightning Energy. So the idea would have been that we could Sada into our Ogre Pond that would then activate our Noctowls. Now, of course, if we Sada to our Raging Bolt, we kind of use that energy. We're not going to be judging or baby bolting or anything like that. But at least we maybe had an increased chance of taking a prize. So I think I would have preferred that a little bit more. But we can, of course, just top deck the
Nah,
Raging Bolt,
we're
the
just
Teal
stacks. What do
Dance.
you mean? We're just gonna
And
sack into it.
we're just gonna sack into it.
I think
All
this is
right.
a matchup where it's pretty difficult to get down the Pidgeot, so I'm not going to go for it immediately. Maybe after we knock
Well,
out this first Badoo, it'll be a little bit easier.
but what if we? Okay, so hear me out here. What if we do it now? Because I think we bench the Pidgey. Honestly, anytime after turn 2, I don't think it's going to be able to establish, and I also don't think we need 3 Hootuts in play here. Um, I think we can probably. I'd probably leave the ADHP Hoothoot in the deck, as having the ADHP Hoothoot is going to be more important in our late game, where we kind of want to bench it to protect ourselves from something like Iono. And if we are going to be able to establish this Pidgey, it is going to be this turn, right? We do expect to get Badooed, but then as soon as the Badoo lock breaks, typically it'll be because we knock out the Badoo. Um, then we will be able to set up our Pidgeot. I think by the time there's a Dragapult in play, if a Pidgey ever hits the board, it just kind of instantly vanishes into thin air and is just kind of evaporated, right? So I think if we are to Pidgeot, it is now or never.
All right, so hear me out, right? Our opponent misclicks
Mm-hmm.
and puts down the bear. And then we boss the bear and
Mm-hmm.
burst roar, and then we get the Pidgeot of that turn.
Wonderful plan. I fail to see how it could ever go wrong.
I'm saying. And so we get Itchy Pollen here,
Yeah.
so we're not going to play any items. Badoo is the demon of this format. Let's see what our top deck is to
Yep.
retrieval. Pretty unfortunate.
Chuck
I do
Ritter.
kind of want to get some use out of this boss's order. I kind of want to make my
Mm-hmm.
opponent just have to commit that energy because we know they did search around with energy search. So I'm going to boss up this Genesect.
Notably, they also did not play a draw supporter or any supporter, frankly. So it is very likely they actually can't retreat this Genesect. If they had an energy, they would likely have attached from hand. So they have not only telegraphed that they don't have a supporter card, but they also don't have an energy card. So it's very likely this Genesect sticks. And even if it doesn't, the boss has served its purpose, which is going to be to waste an energy from our opponent's board or hand here, right? An attachment that could have gone onto a Dreepy and would have been much better there, right?
And kind of unfortunately, her hand is still kind of weak. We drew the other two copies of Raging Bolt, a Vessel and Underdepth, but it is unfortunate because, again, we're kind of in the same spot where we have to top deck that Ogerpon so that we can get Latias into play to retreat Raging Bolt to maybe get that Fan Rotom into the active to get an attack off with that.
Mhm.
If not, top decking the Ogerpon here is still, kind of our best thing here to be able to, turn on our Noctowls. And our opponent actually just,
Ooh.
I'm going to say they ripped that research return because I don't see
Kind of has to be, right?
why they
Yeah.
wouldn't have played it last turn, especially because they
Yep.
Ultra Balled for a copy of Drakloak. So that research was for
Yep.
sure the top deck.
100%. Now, notably, they actually opted to attach to the bench. Arguably a bit of a greedy play here. I'm assuming they are playing, well, definitely Rescue Board, but maybe even a Latias EX of their own, meaning that they would have had a Nest Ball searchable way to get the Genesect out of the active. We'll see if they do get there, though, but attaching to the bench Drakloak instead of the Genesect is a little bit greedy. I understand why they do it, especially if they do play a Latias. However, if this Genesect stays the active, which it will, regardless of our Ogerpon not being in play, we can just simply Vessel and take a knockout here. By no means a great situation, but it is better than doing nothing again, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, this means that our Pidgey is probably going to be getting knocked out next turn, which is
R.I.P.
unfortunate.
Pidgey.
The Pidgeot showcase is not going so great so far,
Definitely
but
not.
I think it's
Maybe it was treated
fine.
maybe it was treated as a meme for a reason, right?
All right, and so the first we're gonna do is Vessel here. I think I'm gonna Vessel with his Grass Energy just in case we top tick Asada. We do have a live
hmm
target for it.
Yeah.
Now we can just grab probably just one of each of these guys.
Well, we can also put the grass in hand in case we do find that Teal Mask Overpond, right? I don't think we need to grab another lightning. Well, I'm not opposed to grabbing another lightning. I think having the grass in hand is just pretty nice here. Um,
So my
yeah, I think that
thought
would be my
is
choice here.
that if we do have a dead hand going into the next turn and we have to use the Burst Roar again, I think having the grass in deck as opposed to attached to the bolt is better. Because then if we Burst
Mhm,
Roar, we're more likely to draw grass plus the Teal Mask Ogerpon.
mhm.
That's my thought process. But I'm not against grabbing one of each. We can see how this way goes.
I do think there's most certainly arguments to go either way. Regardless, for us to play the game next turn, we do kind of need to see an Ogerpon. I think if we see an Ogerpon, the grass just becomes pretty strong here. So we will see how this plays out. assuming we draw moderately well from our top deck plus prize card here, I don't think the energy of choice here should matter. Well, we are going to draw another grass energy, so
Yeah, here
maybe
we're
I
just
shouldn't have
kind of
stopped
hoping
you.
for another.
Just a
I mean, just
ball
any
search
ball
card,
search card,
really.
right?
I mean,
Yeah, we're
any
kind
ball
of in
search
there.
card. Yeah, we do play 4 balls, right?
Yeah, it's 4 S Ball 3
Yeah.
Ultra.
Okay. Thank God.
Even Cyrano, kind of, you know what I mean? Like something, man.
Yeah. Cyrano would be pretty cope right now, but you know what? It's better than doing nothing, right?
It is true. Maybe we can, I don't know, go. Our opponent takes a knockout here. Maybe they go like counter catcher, kill Hoo Hoo Pidgey, and then we go like our own counter catcher, kill Badoo, go to 4, and then take 2
Mhm.
knockouts on back to back Pulse. Doesn't seem terrible.
Yeah, it's something. But I mean, regardless, we do definitely need to to draw a ball search card for an Ogerpon here, or else we're not doing anything.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, our opponent does have that copy of Defiance Band, so that means our Raging Bolt is more than likely getting. It actually is. It's just dying. Yeah. So that sucks because our Bolt's gonna die, our Pidgey's gonna die, our opponent's gonna have 3 prize cards. And they do have a Dracolic with energy on the bench, so it's pretty likely they'll be able to attack with Dragapult to get next turn. So if there's any time to get a good top deck, it is next turn, or it is looking pretty bad for us. But
Yeah,
we
there's
do
definitely
have
now
a
or
lot
never.
of good top decks.
Oh, for sure. And
Um,
frankly, you know, if our deck kind of decided to work with us here, we should never have been in this situation in the first place. But you know, it can
all right,
happen,
come on,
right?
deck.
But
Any ball card. Oh no. All right.
it
Well, this
it
game
might
just
it might be a GG go
yeah,
next.
we're gonna go into our third game here. Go one more.
Yep.
Um, that's just
Hopefully, put a
like
Pidgeot EX into play.
yeah, right. You know, that's just Pokemon. Sometimes you just it happens, right? We've
For
all been there
sure, for
before.
sure.
You know, we've all been on that side and the
Yep.
other side. So let's see. Our opponent also has a Raging Bolt deck box, so maybe we can see a mirror match here and see if that Pidgeot EX can make a difference into the mirror, which I think it could. You know, if your opponent has to target it down early, you know, they're not removing your attackers, so you know, a little bit
Yep.
less stuff to find on the following turn. Although losing Pidgeot would suck. Well, let's see. Maybe we can. Oh God.
This is not pretty.
Okay, so because our opponent has Raging Bolt sleeves, I'm gonna put Slitherwing in the active on the off chance
Yeah.
that they just get the turn 1 like super crazy attack. But it's
Rookie
fine.
mistake. Never trust your opponent's sleeves. They're baiting
We're
you. This
gonna
is
top deck the Fan Rotom because we're
okay.
better.
We're gonna top deck Fan Rotom into top deck
Come on, come
Ogerpon.
on, come on, come on.
And it's Crispin. Okay.
All right.
I say if our opponent plays the game, we go. We do GG go next.
It's fine. We always win this game. We always win this game.
No, you know we do. We know we do. We draw a Pidgey next turn, and we Cyano for Pidgeot Ogerpon, and then we're chilling. Trust.
Okay, our opponent vessels away Asada, so that's pretty cool. One less Asada we
Okay.
gotta worry about. The rest of their hands gotta be pretty good, right? They got rid of Asada. Attached to Fez, okay.
Palpad box Sada. It is likely to be a squawk angle here, then, right? Or
It's
nope,
a pass!
it is.
We can play the
Okay.
game! Okay,
This is
okay.
the Ogerpon top deck to add to that. This is
Okay,
certainly
come on. Teal Dance. Teal
projected
Dance.
to be a game of all
Okay,
time
come
here.
on for the
We got a
Noctowl.
Noctowl. It's likely just a Crispin angle here, right? Get the stomp off going, and then if they don't do anything again, we have the
do we
follow up
want to
Crispin.
mill the top card of their deck? Because what if it's an energy?
Well, it might as well also just be a what's it called? It might as well.
I even
just
kind of
be
want to
a
just
good card,
Cyrano
right?
this turn for another Ogerpon.
Well, so I'd want to Crispin here, namely just to get a fighting energy under this Slitherwing. I don't think we have to stomp off if we don't want to. But if we Crispin this turn, we can Crispin next turn to kind of go from there, right?
You know what? We're gonna stomp off because it's funny. It's for the clip, right?
I feel
What are we
I feel
milling
like
here? What are we milling here?
we are milling
Another copy of
Nest Ball.
Sada? Oh,
Nest
that'd
Ball.
be a good one too. I think we're milling. Oh my god! Get this guy in the casino, man. Get him in the casino. Oh my, not the nest ball. You know our opponent
dude,
has a Noctowl in hand. You know they have a Noctowl in hand.
the nest ball stomp off is diabolical, man.
Oh
I
my
wouldn't take
god.
that personally. And they top deck the fan rotom.
This is
Oh,
certainly a game of all time.
getting stomped off, and then you top deck the notorious turn
Uh,
2 fan
to go.
rotom.
So there's two ways we go about this. We
Oh.
could either Ogerpon and try to rip the fighting off the top, or
Mhm.
we could Crispin first and then draw after. Because
I
then if
think
we
the
draw the
correct
fighting, we can Cyrano for more guys.
right, but like, what are we actually using Cyrano for besides one more Ogerpon and maybe a Raging Bolt? I think we do just Tiamat here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Show us
See if
that
we
nest
can
ball.
rip something good. It's a Hoot Hoot. Okay.
That counts.
That's
That
something.
counts.
That's something. All
Yeah.
right. Bench that bad boy. Go for another Crispin. This one's going to grab another fighting and that lightning
Yeah.
energy so we can get a lightning into circulation here.
Yep.
And then,
Seems
yeah, we're
very
going to be able to
strong.
take a knockout on this Pheasantipity, which is very strong. We can even attach the lightning energy here to Raging Bolt to be able to get all of the guys powered up and the Burning Turbulence. Unfortunately, our Slitherwing is probably going to get return knocked up by this Fan Rotom. I imagine our opponent, might be holding a stadium if they did bench that Fan Rotom. But we took the first two prizes, so we're better at the game than our opponent because it's the Raging Bolt
True.
mirror. And to be better
Very
than your
true.
opponent in the mirror, you have to be better than them.
That is a quote of all time. Now, I do feel like I need to point out the mandatory here, and that we are having a quote unquote bricky hand that happens to have both the Cyano and the rare candy in it. Might be a sign that maybe we shouldn't be playing these cards in our deck, but you know what? It's funny, and we did get the stomp off into Burning Turbulence into the opposing Pheasantipity, so
Okay.
I say it's worth it.
Maybe
And,
instead of Cyrano, it could be a Jacques as well. Because Jacques could get,
Interesting, yeah.
one copy of Noctowl could get Noctowl plus a Pidgeot, and maybe that's a little bit
Mhm.
better. I put the Cyrano in here because they play it in what's that deck? Terapagos, so I thought it could
Yeah.
be funny.
I think the card definitely could work, but if we do play it, we likely have to find some other way of putting pressure on our opponent in the early game. So not using Judge or
Alright.
Sada kind of does mean it's a little hard, or Crispin for that matter, to
So
really
here,
put real pressure on our opponent.
I think I want to just nest ball for Pheasantipity to, fill our hand up a little bit and then make a decision after that on what this Noctowl is going to grab. We do have a bunch of energy preloaded on this Teal Mask Ogerpon, so getting there's the Pidgeot. Let's see. So I think we can just go over another Teal Mask here, get another energy to play, see another card, see what it is. Boom, that's another Raging Bolt. So I think that's fine to just bench as well. We want to have all of our guys into play. And then this nest ball can just grab, probably another copy of Hoot Hoot. As if I'm thinking about what I want to get off my Noctowl, it's probably going to be Sada plus Prime Catcher.
For sure.
Now, notably, bench Pheasantipity.
Notably, before you grab this Hoot Hoot, well, I do think the Hoot Hoot does make sense and is likely to be correct.
Oh wait,
we do have
Candy Pidgeot. What am I doing? This is the showcase, baby. We're getting
the
Pidgey.
objectively funnier play is to bench the Pidgey. So,
and then I think I'm also going to bench the Baby Raging Bolt just to kind of get it out of the hand. In case our opponent does Judge, it's not something really we want to draw. But then we're just gonna slap down this Noctowl here, and then Noctowl's gonna grab the Welder plus the better Welder because from the discard.
Welder and Ninetales right here, for sure. I think if we are to kind of comment on optimal sequencing and all that, we probably should have held the nest ball until after we Sada. There are a lot of very good targets for nest ball in our deck, including another nest ball. So I do think I would have liked design to hold the nest ball. We could have raw drawn the Pidgey, raw drawn a Hoot Hoot, something like that.
Now we can just get the Hoot Hoot anyway.
Thing, but yeah, we could also just draw it anyway. It's a small thing, but you know what? The small things do matter at least once in a while, right?
Yeah, that's what all Christian's Tinder dates tell him.
Hey.
All right, and then, we get the knockout on the. We get the. It's all right. It's just some, it's average kitchen Discord call.
For sure.
All right, and so now we're up 3 prizes in the mirror. Our opponent's never knocking this Pidgeot, so hopefully our opponent doesn't scoop before we can get Pidgeot into play, and we can quick search for game and actually use this thing. All
I
right,
say
I will
we
agree.
quick search, the video ends, and it's a perfect conclusion, right?
There you
It
go.
must be broken.
All right, Cyrano, maybe Cope. I think Jacques is probably better in that spot. My only thought was that in like let's say like you got your turn 1 and you were able to get your Ogerpon energy into play, right? The next turn maybe you were able to go like Cyrano for like get aggro deck, right? They take a knockout, you grab like Latios plus Pheasantipity plus Pidgeot, and then maybe like that gets something going. So that was my thought process initially. Or even if you were to get like a turn 1 attached like the Baby Raging Bolt, you could still take a turn 2 knockout just by using the quick search to get another energy into play. So or the Fan Rotom even, it searches that like last piece you're missing to maybe swing 70 with Fan Rotom, because against the majority of the decks in the format, just swinging 70 turn 1 is kind of just enough to take a knockout. So is Cyrano better? I don't know. I haven't played. This is the first game I played with it. Is Jacques better? I don't know. I have played no games with it, but we'll leave it up to the people. Maybe I'll roll up to Portland and play both. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Now, notably, I would like to point out one card in James Blitzel's list, the original 60 of this, of course, is the Badoo. I think Badoo just has a lot of synergy with the Pidgeot in this deck. Now, of course, if we are using Badoo instead of Baby Bolt or even Fan Rotom, it's typically not a good thing for a Raging Bolt deck. We would rather be putting real aggression on
He
our
better
opponent.
not kill Pidgey. Okay.
Oh, thank God. We would rather be, putting on some real aggression on our opponent, right? By using our damaging attacks. However, I do think when we are trying to set up a Pidgeot with that rare candy, I think the Badoo does.
I don't want to look.
Seem really good.
Do we get the rare candy in the Pidgeot back?
We do not have rare candy Pidgeot, but we do have game, but it is not candy Pidgeot.
I hate it.
Oh, maybe we don't have game anymore.
Oh, we don't have game anymore.
No, we do have game. We do have game. I'm trolling. We just boss.
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
After closing my eyes for 30 seconds, the light from my webcam and the light above me kind of blinded me for a second. But yeah, we do have game. We still have gotten Pidgeot into play, but I'm gonna put Pidgeot in the thumbnail because it's funny, and we
you
probably
gotta clickbait
used
the people somehow, right?
Yeah. Pidgeot Raging Bolt in the thumbnail. Raging Bolt control coming to a locals near you.
And, I hope not. I really hope not.
Raging Bolt control. Come on, come over here, buddy. I'm gonna kill you again. And yeah.
We also do get that jamming tower from the top deck. We could have just put that down to knock out the active if we'd rather win that way, right?
Nah, we want to assert dominance. We want to show our opponent they judged us in the boss because we're better than them.
Judging your opponent into their one-off copy of boss is most certainly dominance asserted.
Well, thank you to Christian / Big Sticks for joining me today and playing some Raging Bolt control. Like I said, I'm going to have all of his links down in the description below. First video back after like, I don't know, a year or so. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. And go book Christian for some coaching because he's better than you and me combined.
Actually, like low-key. Metafight community, cool. Bolt guide, awesome. The one-on-one coaching, dude, I'm swarmed. Can we like take a break, guys? I appreciate the love, but like, dude, I need to get my schedule under control. So I'll put a bookmark on that one, okay?
All right. Well, appreciate you guys. Catch you in the next one.